A little boy got on the bus, sat next to a man reading a book, and noticed he had his collar backward. The little boy asked why he wore his collar backward. The man, who was a priest, said, "I am a father." The little boy replied, "My daddy is also a father, but he doesn't wear his collar like that." The priest looked up from his book and answered, "I am the father of many." The boy said, "My dad has 4 boys, 4 girls, and 2 grandchildren, and he doesn't wear his collar that way." The priest, getting impatient, said, "I am the father of hundreds," and went back to reading his book. The little boy sat quietly thinking for a while, then leaned over and said, "Maybe you should wear a put your pants on backwards instead of your collar." A newlywed bride returned home after her honeymoon. Her best friend, curious and excited, asked, "So where did you go for your honeymoon?" The bride blushed and said, "New York, Miami, and Las Vegas." Her friend, amazed, asked, "Wow, what did you see there?" The bride sighed and replied, "The ceiling and the fan." Little Johnny was kissed by a girl he really liked, but after only a few seconds, Johnny abruptly ended his first kiss. "I'm so sorry, but I can't continue," he said. "Why not?" the girl asked. "Didn't you like it?" "No, that's not it," Johnny replied. "It's my mom. She said that if I kiss a girl before I'm 16, I'll turn into a statue, and I can start to feel it happening in my trousers." An Amish lady is trotting down the road in her horse and buggy when she is pulled over by a cop. "Ma'am, I'm not going to ticket you, but I do have to issue you a warning. You have a broken reflector on your buggy." "Oh. I'll let my husband Jacob know as soon as I get home." "That's fine. Another thing, ma'am. I don't like the way that one rein loops across the horse's back and around one of his balls. I consider that animal abuse. That's cruelty to animals. Have your husband take care of that right away." Later that day, the lady is home telling her husband about her encounter with the cop. "Well, dear, what exactly did he say?" "He said the reflector is broken. I can fix that in 2 minutes. What else?" "I'm not sure, Jacob. Something about the emergency brake." Bill, Jim, and Scott were at a convention together and were sharing a large suite on the top of a 75-story skyscraper. After a long day of meetings, they were shocked to hear that the elevators in their hotel were broken and they would have to climb 75 flights of stairs to get to their room. Bill said to Jim and Scott, "Let's break the monotony of this unpleasant task by concentrating on something interesting. I'll tell jokes for 25 flights, and Jim can sing songs for 25 flights, and Scott can tell sad stories the rest of the way." At the 26th floor, Bill stopped telling jokes and Jim began to sing. At the 51st floor, Jim stopped singing and Scott began to tell sad stories. "I will tell my saddest story first," he said. "I left the room key in the car." A couple, married for 35 years, decided to see a therapist to repair their strained relationship. When asked what the problem was, the wife went into a frenzy, relating every tiny irritation, neglect, lack of intimacy, emptiness, loneliness, feeling unloved. Finally, the therapist stood up. He walked towards the wife, embraced, and kissed her passionately. Her husband watched, with the nanny a raised eyebrow. The woman was all quiet and sat down in a daze. The therapist turned to the husband. "This is what your wife needs at least 3 times a week. Can you do this?" The husband looked relieved. "Well, I can drop her off here on Mondays and Wednesdays, but on Fridays, I play golf." A man was sitting quietly reading his paper when his wife walked up behind him and whacked him on the head with a magazine. "What was that for?" he asked. "That was for the piece of paper in your trouser pocket with the name Laura Lou written on it," she replied. "2 weeks ago when I went to the races, Laura Lou was the name of one of the horses I bet on. I bought you those flowers with the winnings," he explained. "Oh, darling, I'm sorry," she said. "I should have known there was a good explanation." 3 days later, he was watching TV when she walked up and hit him in the head again, this time with a frying pan, which knocked him out cold. When he came to, he asked, "What was that for?" "Your horse phoned." A young couple invited their elderly pastor over for Sunday dinner. While the couple was busy in the kitchen preparing the meal, the pastor struck up a conversation with their young son. "What are we having for dinner?" the pastor asked curiously. "Goat," the boy replied confidently. "Goat?" said the startled pastor. "Are you sure about that?" "Yep," the boy nodded. "On the way home from church, I heard Mom say to Dad, 'Don't forget, we're having the old goat for dinner tonight.'" Tommy is a young boy, just potty trained. When he goes to the bathroom, though, Tommy manages to hit everything but the toilet, so his mom has to go in and clean up after him. After 2 weeks, she has had enough and takes Tommy to see the doctor. After the examination, the doctor said, "His unit is too small. An old wives' tale is to give him 2 slices of toast each morning, and his unit will grow so he can hold it and aim straight." The next morning, Tommy jumped out of bed and ran downstairs to the kitchen. There on the table are 12 slices of toast. "Mom," Tommy yells, "the doctor said I only had to eat 2 slices of toast." "I know," said his mother. "The other 10 are for your father." A lion and lioness are sitting in their den when a monkey climbs up a nearby tree and starts insulting the mighty lion. The lioness starts to get angry and says, "King of the jungle, how dare you allow this puny monkey to insult you? You must punish him." "You are right, but you know what? I am king of the jungle and I must not lower myself to his level. Let's ignore it." The lioness, astonished, sat in silence. Yet the monkey kept on. After some time, the lioness loses her patience. "I cannot allow this any longer. I'm going to teach that monkey a lesson." So the lioness chases after the monkey. After a long chase, she finds herself out of the jungle and at a construction site. She sees the monkey going through a narrow pipe and leaps in after him. The pipe apparently was not large enough, and the lioness got stuck. Seeing that the lioness is stuck, the monkey walks around behind her. "Who's a bad girl? Who's a bad girl?" he yells as he her from behind over and over again. The monkey has his way and then finally leaves with a big smile on his face. After an hour-long struggle, the lioness finally frees herself from the pipe. Injured and completely embarrassed, she returns home to the jungle and to her king. "So how did the hunt go?" the lion curiously asked. The lioness couldn't even look at him. "Ah, he took you to the construction site, didn't he?" 2 priests are heading to the showers late one night. As they undress, they realize there's no soap. Father Johnny says, "I'll grab some from my room," and without bothering to dress, he hurries down the hall holding 2 bars of soap. As he's heading back, he spots 3 nuns walking his way. With nowhere to hide, he presses himself against the wall, staying perfectly still, hoping they'll mistake him for a statue. The nuns stop, admiring how lifelike he appears. One of them, curious, reaches out and pulls his hand. Startled, Father Johnny accidentally drops a bar of soap. "Oh, look," says the first nun, "a soap dispenser." To test it, the second nun also gives his hand a tug, and sure enough, the second bar of soap falls to the ground. The third nun, feeling adventurous, tugs once, then twice, but nothing happens. She tries several more times and finally shouts, "Sisters, forget soap. This one gives hand lotion too." A man is driving down a quiet country road when he loses control of his car and veers into a ditch. Frustrated but unhurt, he walks to a nearby farmhouse and explains his predicament to the farmer. The farmer nods, grabs a rope, and leads his old horse to the crash site. Tying the rope securely to the car, the farmer calls out, "Pull, Zoomer, pull!" The horse doesn't budge. "Pull, Radar, pull!" the farmer shouts, but again the horse remains still. "Pull, Dasher, pull!" the farmer yells, but the horse stands firm. Finally, the farmer says, "Pull, Dusty, pull!" At this, the horse starts pulling and easily drags the car out of the ditch. Amazed, the driver asks, "Why did you call your horse by different names?" The farmer chuckles and replies, "Dusty is blind. If he thought he was pulling alone, he wouldn't have tried." A married couple claimed they never argued in their 25 years of marriage. A friend asked, "How is that even possible?" The husband explained, "It all started during our honeymoon when we went to a ranch. While horseback riding, my wife's horse suddenly bucked and she fell off. She calmly got up, patted the horse, and said, 'That's your first time.' A little later, the horse bucked her off again. She stood up, patted it again, and said, 'That's your second time.' But when it happened a third time, she pulled out a gun and shot the horse. I was shocked and yelled, 'Are you out of your mind? You just killed the horse!' She turned to me with a calm look and said, 'That's your first time.' And from that day on, we never had a fight." Two boys are playing football in Central Park when one is attacked by a rabid Rottweiler. Thinking quickly, the other boy rips off a board of the nearby fence, wedges it down the dog's collar, and twists, breaking the dog's neck. A reporter who was strolling by sees the incident and rushes over to interview the boy. Young Giants fan saves friend from vicious animal, he starts writing in his notebook. But I'm not a Giants fan, the little hero replied. Sorry, since we are in New York, I just assumed you were, said the reporter and starts again. Little Jets fan rescues friend from horrific attack, he continued writing in his notebook. I'm not a Jets fan either, the boy said. I assumed everyone in New York was either for the Giants or Jets. What team do you root for? The reporter asked. I'm a Cowboys fan, the child said. The reporter starts a new sheet in his notebook and writes, Little redneck maniac kills beloved family pet. The pastor's wife was expecting their baby, so he stood before the congregation and requested a raise. After much deliberation, the church passed a policy. Whenever the pastor's family grew, so would his salary. After 6 children, the situation became expensive, and the congregation scheduled another meeting to discuss the pastor's growing paycheck. A heated debate ensued, with much shouting and disagreement over the cost of the pastor's expanding family and how much more it could potentially add to the budget. After listening to the discord for about an hour, the pastor stood up and said, Children are a blessing from God, and we will accept all the blessings He sends our way. The room fell silent. From the back pew, an elderly woman slowly rose to her feet, her voice frail but clear. Rain is also a gift from God, but when we get too much of it, we wear rubbers. The entire congregation responded, Amen. A beautiful young woman is about to undergo a minor operation. She's laid on a hospital trolley bed with nothing on, except a sheet over her. The nurse pushes the trolley down the corridor towards the operating theater, where she leaves the girl on the trolley outside while she goes in to check whether everything is ready. A young man wearing a white coat approaches, lifts the sheet up, and starts examining her body. He puts the sheet back and then walks away and talks to another man in a white coat. The second man comes over, lifts the sheet, and does the same examinations. When a third man does the same thing, but more closely, she grows impatient and says, All these examinations are fine and appreciated, but when are you going to start the operation? The man in the white coat shrugged his shoulders. I have no idea. We're just painting the corridor. An older couple were lying in bed one night. The husband was falling asleep, but the wife was in a romantic mood and wanted to talk. She said, You used to hold my hand when we were courting. Wearily, he reached across, held her hand for a second, and tried to get back to sleep. A few moments later, she said, Then you used to kiss me? Mildly irritated, he reached across, gave her a peck on the cheek, and settled down to sleep. 30 seconds later, she said, Then you used to bite my neck. Angrily, he threw back the bedclothes and got out of bed. Where are you going? She asked. To get my teeth. 3 women, 2 younger and 1 senior citizen, were sitting in a sauna only covered by a towel. Suddenly, there was a beeping sound. The young woman pressed her forearm and the beep stopped. The others looked at her questioningly. That was my pager, she said. I have a microchip under the skin of my arm. A few minutes later, a phone rang. The second young woman lifted her palm to her ear. When she finished, she explained, That was my mobile phone. I have a microchip in my hand. The older woman felt very low-tech. Not to be outdone, she decided she had to do something just as impressive. She stepped out of the sauna and went to the bathroom. She returned with a piece of toilet paper hanging from her rear end. The others raised their eyebrows and stared at her. The older woman finally said, Well, will you look at that? I'm getting a fax. A mafia godfather finds out that his bookkeeper, Guido, has cheated him out of $10 million. His bookkeeper is deaf and dumb. That was the reason he got the job in the first place. It was assumed that Guido would hear nothing, so he would never have to testify in court. When the Godfather goes to confront Guido about his missing $10 million, he takes along his lawyer who knows sign language. The Godfather tells the lawyer, "Ask him where the money is." The lawyer, using sign language, asks Guido, "Where's the money?" Guido signs back, "I don't know what you are talking about." The lawyer tells the Godfather, "He says he doesn't know what you're talking about." The Godfather pulls out a pistol, puts it to Guido's head and says, "Ask him again or I'll kill him." The lawyer signs to Guido, "He'll kill you if you don't tell him." Guido trembles and signs, "Okay, you win. The money is in a brown briefcase buried behind the shed at my cousin Bruno's house." The Godfather asks the lawyer, "What did he say?" The lawyer replies, "He says you don't have the guts to pull the trigger." An elderly couple had just snuggled into bed when the old man let out a loud fart and proudly announced, "7 points for me." His wife, puzzled, turned over and asked, "What are you talking about?" Grinning, he replied, "We're playing fart football." Not one to back down from a challenge, his wife waited a moment, then let out an impressive fart of her own. "Touchdown! Tie game!" she declared with a smirk. A few seconds later, the old man let out another one and triumphantly announced, 14-7, back in the lead! Determined to keep up, his wife responded with another loud one, then quickly followed it with a squeaker. "Touchdown and a field goal, I'm ahead, 17-14. Feeling the pressure, the old man gave it his all, but things took an unexpected turn. With one big push, he went a little too far and accidentally pooped the bed. His wife, wide-eyed, stared at him and asked, "What just happened?" With a sigh, the old man admitted, "Guess it's halftime. Time to switch sides." A man was pulled over for driving too fast, even though he thought he was driving just fine. "Officer, you were speeding." Man, "No, I wasn't." Officer, "Yes, you were. I'm giving you a ticket." Man, "But I wasn't speeding." Officer, "Tell that to the judge." The officer gives man the ticket. Man, "Would I get another ticket if I called you a jerk?" Officer, "Yes, you would." Man, "What if I just thought that you were?" Officer, "I can't give you a ticket for what you think." Man, "Fine, I think you're a jerk." A wife had been asking her husband to fix a few things around the house. One day she complained, "Honey, the grass is way too high. Can you cut it?" The husband, looking frustrated, replied, "What do I look like to you? A landscaper?" The next day, the sink started dripping, and she asked him, "The faucet's leaking. Can you fix it?" His reply, rolling his eyes, was, "What do I look like to you? A plumber?" 2 days later, the light bulb went out in the kitchen. She sighed and asked, "Honey, can you change this light bulb?" He threw up his hands and grumbled, "What am I, an electrician?" Days later, the husband came home from work to find the lawn mowed, the faucet repaired, and the light bulb replaced. Surprised, he asked, "What happened here?" His wife, smiling, replied, "Well, our new neighbor came over and took care of everything." Curious, he asked, "How did you pay him?" She shrugged. "He gave me 2 options, bake him a cake or have love with him." Relieved, the husband asked, "Okay, so what kind of cake did you bake him?" The wife smirked. "What do you think I am, Betty Crocker?" A woman decided to divorce her husband and hired a divorce lawyer. They were in the courtroom when the judge asked her to take the stand. The courtroom fell silent as the judge adjusted their glasses and addressed her. "Mrs. Johnson, can you please explain to the court why you're seeking a divorce?" She nodded confidently, leaned into the microphone, and said, "Your Honor, it's because my husband and I are too compatible." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Too compatible? Don't you mean incompatible?" "No, Your Honor," she replied firmly. "I meant exactly what I said. We're exactly alike. I love movies. He loves movies. I adore Mexican food. He can't get enough of it. Hiking, yoga, politics, religion. Everything matches perfectly." The judge looked puzzled. "I'm sorry, but I still don't see the problem." She leaned in closer and whispered, "The problem is we both love men." The other day I accompanied my wife when she went to the parlor for a haircut. Reading a magazine in the reception area, I found an interesting article. I asked the receptionist if I could take the magazine next door to make a photocopy. "Leave some ID, a driver's license, or a credit card," she said. "But my wife is here getting a haircut," I explained. "Yes, I know," she replied. "But I need something you'll come back for." Husband: "I lost my wife. She went shopping, hasn't come back yet." Officer: "What is her height?" Husband: "Average, I guess." Officer: "Weight?" Husband: "Average, I guess." Officer: "Color of eyes?" Husband: "Never noticed." Officer: "Color of hair?" Husband: "Changes according to season." Officer: "What was she wearing?" Husband: "Not sure. Either a dress or a suit." Officer: "Was she driving?" Husband: "Yes." Officer: "Color and make of car?" Husband: "Black Tesla AWD dual motor model, P85D with 691 horsepower. It does 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds. Has LED headlights, cornering and fog lights, and the tech package with autopilot. There's a small scratch on the driver door next to the handle." And then the husband started crying.